Because again, I really do think the XXL list should be about who is going to come into the game, to change the game, and to stay for a while. This should be a cover that symbolizes longevity and potential, not just momentary buzz. Back. This is the Hip Hop Report. I'm your host, Rambo Hustle. Today we'll be discussing the always controversial but extremely popular XXL Freshman List. Now, the 2018 list is, of course, as usual, controversial, but also somewhat inaccurate and, kind of agenda-based. You can definitely tell that XXL is struggling to, as the only last remaining print media, is struggling to kind of keep afloat in this new age of the internet where, who's reading magazines, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of old school, so I kind of enjoy the aesthetics of having a cool magazine to look through some pictures, some cool articles and tidbits on music and behind the scenes stuff. But let's be honest, there's not a lot left in that field of play in regards to business. Now, for those of you saying that XXL is not relevant, I will say this. It may not be as relevant as it was in the past, but I will say that the listing of the freshmen is definitely iconic, and it still is a topic of conversation every year, despite how long it takes for them to roll it out. I remember before it used to be in February, then March, then April, and now it's almost July, and we're barely just getting this thing. So, to me, I'm just happy that we're still doing it, although I would like to see a little bit more concern for the culture and not so glamorized around the drug culture and what's popular with the fans. There's definitely, everyone on the list is obviously deserving because there's millions of artists across the globe. However, I do feel like we need to balance that out so where we do have some artists on there that do dumbed down, ignorant mumble rap, do party music, and then we have a landscape of artists that actually give us some social awareness in their content and allow us to justify that, hey, at least the list is balanced and there's some bars and there's some party stuff and then, there's stuff in the middle. So I do think that's an avenue that XXL could really work on to really showcase the wide range of variety and what we do in regards to our hip-hop culture, the different kind of artists that we have, where it's not just all dumbed down Soundcliud rappers or a bunch of singing ass rappers or whatever the case is. I think we definitely need to balance that beam out. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Now we'll go from top left to bottom right just so everybody can kind of keep up. JID is a young one, and for you old heads that want to shit on the whole list because you don't know any better, he's definitely your ace. If you know, you know. The kid is signed, I believe, if not at least closely related and affiliated with J. Cole's Dreamville, and rightfully so. His wordplay and storytelling ability are nice. On top of that, he's got an extremely rare voice. It's kind of nasally, high-pitched. So he might be kind of like a 50-50 with fans, but hell, even Kendrick made that work with the high vocal tweaks, and so who knows, Second top center is Stefflon Don, who, to be completely honest with you, I hadn't even heard of her up to this point. I did some research on her. She's got numbers, she's got videos with up to 37 million plays on them, so obviously that's a plus. But at the same time, I really think that XXL is trying to kill two birds with one stone. They always feel the need to absolutely have a female representation on the cover. And obviously they're trying to reach the overseas crowd because overseas fans just tend to be a little bit more passionate in the support of hip-hop, both in, purchase of magazines and record sales and all that stuff. So, I think a lot is to be said about that, but to be honest with you, I just don't think that the American population is really going to ever take to that British accent and their style of music, just based off the accent, as much as, maybe they take to our music. We are kind of the leaders, and we kind of are spearheading the popular culture train at this point. So, Drake tried to include it into the If You're Reading This Is Too Late album, and we listened to that fucking record for about a month, and we haven't played it since. So, who knows? Now, third in line is YBN, who actually has some pretty good talent under him as well in the YBN crew. Maybe one of my favorites on here, my guy Adrian Swish put me onto the Alabama Native when I was in LA in November, and honestly I could just tell that the kid had confidence. He had that star presence. He didn't seem timid, he doesn't seem camera shy, he just I believed, if I didn't believe what he was talking about, I definitely believed that he was confident enough to talk about it and sell it. So, you know, if nothing, it's that. So, now he landed on the G-Eazy tour this summer with Yo Gotti and a few others, so make sure to check him out. And I mean, honestly, the kid's just impressive. He's like 17 years old. He's still got braces. You know, and like I said, he's got two really solid artists under him. Almighty J, who honestly I don't know much about in regards to music, but I know he bagged Black China on Christian Mingle, and that alone should put him on the list, actually. That's Rob Kardashian money, man. Anyways, you know, and then most recently, YBN Cordae, I don't know if that's how you actually say his name, but he released a reply to J. Cole's 1985 addressing old heads on an old school beat, and honestly, he really killed it. Check this out.
Old niggas always talking, never show it. You gotta practice what you preach, and the classes that you teach will eventually listen. My mind mentally prison. Lately, all my idols, they've been felling me. Catch a sexual assault and some felony.
Now, Lil Pump is the leader of the new school to me, and fuck, man. I mean, I can't even lie. Skidded is fire. He needs to do like a big remix with a bunch of his collaborators, and maybe some people on there that can are actually gonna be able to spit some bars on there, and that's their MO. So like that, he doesn't have to break his brand. Cause, you know, I truly believe Lil Pump can rap better than he does. I just think he's too smart for that shit, and he's just trolling everybody so he can get his money. Lil Pump also has the lead record on the Deadpool soundtrack alongside French Montana. So I'm telling you, man, that kid is smarter than people give him credit for, and he seems to have made some solid moves in regards to taking control of his brand. So he'll be around for a while. So I'd say either get used to it or just don't go to the club. So Black Boy JB is like the grand prize winner of a local radio station contest, honestly. He just knew the right people, and like a comet shooting Look Alive record, at least one of the strongest new records out with new artists. Obviously the Drake feature is a solid look for him. And even though Rover was a great follow-up, his position looks a lot like YG's did after Tutor to Boot It, where like, you know, if he pushes for improvement, he can last. If he thinks he's just gonna keep making these same old records, I just don't think the shoot dance is gonna last through the summer. I think that'll be a 3-month thing, and then we're out of there. So I really hope he's able to adapt and start kind of like developing his delivery and his style, so he can kind of like have the same opportunities that YG has now, about, you know, 8-10 years later. So I think that's important. And of course he's got the streets, so that's always good too, because they're gonna support him just off the strength. Now, Wi-Fi Funeral was a last-minute addition to me, I assume, since Tekashi wasn't gonna be able to make the cut, or at least they didn't want him to make the cut. Though he's growing in his fan base for a while now, I don't really feel he has the buzz that this opportunity would require. Though luckily for him, like I said, Tekashi got the boot, and you know, he's definitely got the talent. He can definitely rap. To where if he pops off XXL will look like geniuses, and if he doesn't, then they took a chance. So it's a win-win for them. Now, if you haven't checked out his freestyles, make sure you do that. Definitely dope to see somebody with the Soundcliud rapper image and the ability to deliver bars, because you already know that's money. Now, last but definitely not least, Magneto to, well, I guess they're both kind of Magneto, but to 6ix9ine. He's the bad guy arch nemesis of 6ix9ine, Trippie Red, who is in a space of his own, honestly, a lot like XXX was last year. Nobody on this list can really do what he does in regards to his style, except maybe Tekashi, I guess. Yeah! Okay, so maybe he can't do exactly what he does, but it was pretty funny watching him try. Now, he seems to have some solid cosigns, big records, and a lane. Now, if he can hit the boards before his next face tat, I can take him a little bit more serious. Now, Ski Master Slump God is somebody you had just heard about with his new video. Let me show you guys a clip of it. It's really cool. Now, this video reminds me of like Busta Rhymes old school stuff, and though I'm not super familiar with his music, and I have a feeling that it's not something I would necessarily listen to all the time, I do understand the appeal of it. You know, for the younger kids, they just like weird shit like this. And, you know, we had Busta Rhymes back in the day. This is right along that lane. So even though he may not be able to rap in the same light as he does, I think the aesthetics of his image and his presentation are a lot alike. So don't go try to shit on this too fast, because obviously this kid is more outside the box than most, and thus may actually be able to evolve and develop and deliver different kind of music that we may not get from anybody else. Now, Smokepurpp, I'll be honest with you, I don't know too much about him. I haven't found any records that really struck me as particularly dynamic or impressive. I do know that he produces records and he works with Lil Pump quite often. And he was part of the 1985 Fuck J. Cole chant backlash. But besides that, and you know, obviously there was rumored that he was in the studio with Drake, so obviously that would be a great look. But even to that, I don't see where his commercial appeal is, neither in his music or his image. And though I hope that I am proven wrong, up to this point, I just haven't seen anything that really made me feel like he was a top tier candidate for this particular opportunity. I understand there's money involved. I understand there's politics as usual, but man, we have to have somebody in these listings that actually gives hip-hop a good name. It can't just be all drugs, bullshit, bitches, and turn up. We have to provide our audience, or our potential audience that maybe is going to be introduced to hip-hop in the next 3 to 5 years, to look and have some artists that maybe aren't as abrasive or maybe as disrespectful to certain demographics and things like that. I do think there's a lot to be said about media not just going after their pockets and supporting that, but also trying their best to create a good positive future through our music and what they are feeding to the audience. My listing 4 names that are missing from this particular list. I do think Young Dolph out of Memphis was a perfect chance for that. Between his performances at Rolling Loud, his music, his fan base, which is still always growing and growing and growing. He's selling out shows all across the country. I think he was a sure shot for the street representative for this particular list. In addition to, of course, Tekashi 6ix9ine, who by far is, in regards to streams and successful records out, is the most successful out of anyone on this particular list, except maybe Lil Pump. But Lil Pump hasn't had the quantity of records go major like Tekashi has, which again, I think is an anomaly. It's crazy, but nonetheless, the guy getting snubbed on this is a really bad look for XXL. Lil Skies got snubbed. I think he has showcased the tremendous ability and surpassed his Soundcliud rapper status with amazing energy on shows, as Rolling Loud and his own tours and things like that. His music is extremely diverse, from rapping to melodies. And even though his image is more under the SoundCloud rapper category, he has showcased an ability to create actually catchy records that people resonate with. The idea that we need some rappers on this list that actually give hip-hop a good name, that have some lyrics, that have some bars, that have some content that we can stand by in 10, 15 years from now. With that being said, I enter Nick Grant from Atlanta, somebody who is extremely talented in the lyrical phase of talent. I don't know why he wasn't even in the mentioning of this particular cover. People are sleeping on him big time. He has great content, great messages. He can spit his ass off. His image is not it's not typical. He's clean cut, well dressed. He's a good representation for hip hop going into the future. Now, in addition to that, going over to Chicago in the Midwest, Juice WRLD is somebody that just signed a deal for over $3 million and has showcased tremendous potential to not only rap, sing, but come up with really clever lines that resonate with the listener and make you love his records even more so than just listening to them, and how catchy his melodies and the sound of his voice is. Now, with that being said, since they always have female MCs, they tend to always have a Latin MC somewhere in there. Now, I do think that if you were going to go do the overseas thing, you should have gone for a language that is more prevalent here in the US. Bad Bunny would have been a great selection for this because he represents the Latin trap movement, which is huge right now. With his buzz and explosion in the past year and a half, he would have been a great look for XXL to be ahead of the curve and actually put somebody on the cover that is huge in the world already, but maybe the US fan base isn't as familiar with him just yet. Now, of course, he's on the Like It record with Cardi B, and a lot of people are taking to this record, but they may not know who Bad Bunny is up to this point. Just for argument's sake, we don't do Bad Bunny. Man, doesn't Tamboy's leader, Bodega Bam, deserve a look? Last but not least, somebody that I think is clearly beyond this, but to me, I think is humble enough to say, I want to be on this because I grew up and this magazine influenced me as a youngster and as a fan of hip hop. I think a pregnant Cardi B would have been epic and iconic for this particular issue, and it had never been done before. And let's be honest, Cardi B deserves every single credential that she gets, every accomplishment that we're able to give Cardi B. We should absolutely hand it over. With that being said, please guys, make sure you subscribe and leave me a comment. Like I said before, I want to know who you would put in your top 10 freshman list if you were in charge. So all you old heads that want to dismiss this whole list, let's not do that. If you guys are in tune with up and coming artists, which I have a feeling a lot of you may not be, I want to know who those artists is. Do you know most of those artists on this list? Don't just hate this list because you don't know any of them. Do some research. See, maybe there's a record here and there that you might like. You won't know until you do some research and you find out why these people got enough attention behind them to land themselves in this lucrative position. Once again, this is Ramble Hustle with the Hip Hop Report. Peace, love, and hip hop. Woo!